It was, I'm sure.
It's going to be the most profound statement ever. I think I like this timer the best. I like the music. It reminds me of the Wii channel.
It does.
Remember, like, you were really excited when somebody's me would come and say hi and be like, "Oh, there's Josh! He's walking around because we're Nintendo E friends." I remember that. Those are the good old days. Hey, so I got to, for the first time ever. Have you ever played VR? Anything VR?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh,
Dylan
man,
has a Quest.
It is trippy. It is cool. Who has what?
Dylan has the Oculus Quest.
Does he? Okay, so I played, I think, with the Oculus 2. Is it the same thing, Oculus 2 Quest?
Yeah, the Oculus 2 is just the
newer version.
The newer version, yeah.
Yeah, so I got to play. I've never played VR before.
It's crazy.
And man, I'm sold. That was so cool. I played the classic Beat Saber.
Beat Saber.
And it was a lot of fun.
So we have a mountain climbing one where you're like, and it's pretty good. You got to keep your hands all chopped up. And you got to move from place to place, and there's different tracks that you got to follow. They also have a. It's almost like one of them. You're a spy and you're in a car and you're in an airplane and the bomb's about to go off and you got to figure out how to unlock everything to get out before the bomb goes off. They have different puzzles like that you got to escape room type stuff.
That's intense.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But
cool. Dylan is a Beat Saber master.
Is he?
Yes.
Does he do it with like no effort though? Because those people annoy me when they're like. It's like when you were playing Mario Tennis with people and they'd just be like.
Yeah, well, he does it on the like extra difficult level, so. But his motions are just so fluid going through there. He loves going places where they have that publicly, like at museums and stuff, where you can take turns playing it.
Oh yeah.
And it's always Beat Saber. And so the people are trying to show him. He's like, I know. He goes, can I change the difficulty level? He goes, can you put it on Expert Plus? And they're like, do you know how hard that is? It's like, yes, I do. And so. It's like 3D. He's moving around, spinning around. They're coming out of different directions, and I mean, it's crazy. I can't even follow it with my eyes.
And then they have it on a screen, right? Do they have them like in a green room?
Yeah.
So you're gonna paint your garage green?
Right. Yeah.
I like some of those. There's this cool new cowboy one that I've seen. Where like you're walking down the OK Corral or whatever, and it's like to a beat, and you've got to like shoot people as they're coming out of the and dodge their bullets are like lines, and so it's like all dodging.
It's crazy stuff, and it is.
Justin Fowler needs to stop sending me photos via Instagram.
Okay, you can unfollow. Hacked. Yes, and he not only has he been hacked, he's been hacked. But they also changed his password, and they changed his affiliated email address.
Yikes.
And he's tried to contact Instagram on numerous occasions, and they just won't do anything about it. So.
Okay, so block this one.
Yeah. And Instagram's reporting is stupid. You can't report something as hacked or cloned or anything. You can just report it as spam.
Cool. No worries. I meant to ask you about that. I mean, I'd like that free Cash App money. That'd be great.
I know, right?
That's why I added it to my TikTok, just in case some random person sends me some moolah on the Cash App.
Oh.
Yeah, man. We're slaying it on the Duolingo and trying to get those 3 minimum 4 workout days in a week.
It's good.
It is good. It's good. Well, we moved our treadmill in our treadmill room, and so it's. I think it's in a lot better place. So.
Best place for a treadmill is in front of the TV.
Yeah, ours has a slot, so we just have one of our Kindles is just always there.
Nice.
So that's why
Something
I
that-
kind of wish I had like a standing desk with a treadmill here. Or that's why I'm looking forward. I'm really looking forward to the days where video games are VR, and then you get on like the optimal treadmill and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we can both do our podcast from treadmills and walking desks one day, and it'll be hey man, what's going on today? Like,
Not much. Behind the Beards.
Can
Where
you
we take
imagine
a
trying to
lap
watch
around
that?
what's in your brain.
Oh, I can't imagine. I'd get seasick just doing it probably.
Oh, we're going to be on a boat.
Okay, I'd get treadmill sick.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is season 3,
Woo!
episode 1 of Behind the Beards, and we're really glad that you've chosen to join us today. Hey, here on Behind the Beards, we take a look behind the scenes and do our best to reveal the things that go on in the hearts and minds of your church and ministry leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I am Joshua Fowler, a preaching minister in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And my brother, Aaron Partlow, is a youth minister in Longview, Texas.
That's me.
And man, it's been a few weeks since we've been together. We had Christmas, and then we were out of town, and then you were out of town, and so man, it's really good to be back here. I miss sitting here and talking with you. I miss these Tuesdays when we don't get to record. So I'm really glad to be here. Glad to see you.
Them too. They're good.
How's your last few weeks, man?
Last few weeks have been really good. So I got to preach the day after Christmas, and that was a lot of fun, and that was good. And it was one of those lessons where it's like I feel like you're pushing a boulder up a hill, where you can't get the tractor going. So like the entire man, you just feel like you're struggling and you're wrestling to just get the words out and get like your points across and articulated and all these kind of things. And I had more people grab my arm and say, I've heard a lot of lessons on Psalms 23, and that's got to be in my top 5. So that being said, I was really grateful, and it's funny because it just made me connect with that idea of wrestling with the Holy Spirit, because I prayed so hard, because I don't know what it was about that lesson, but I just felt unprepared, no matter how many hours and how many things I put into it, that the Holy Spirit would just take over and preach what people needed to hear. And he did. He did that, and I was grateful, and it was a terrible feeling for me, but I'm really grateful that everyone got what they needed to hear out of that lesson and felt encouraged and challenged and things like that. So
Awesome.
I love and hate those sermons, because you always walk away going, oh, I did so bad, and that's when you get the most compliments. But then again, I'm not in it for compliments, so there's a lot of emotions and a lot of things that go in your head. There's a tug of war.
I preached a series on Psalm 23 for instead of just preaching one sermon.
Mm-hmm.
And so for 4 weeks, we read the 23rd Psalm out of different versions each week as part of the scripture reading. And that was really cool, just to see the different ways, the different versions kind of pulling some of the language, and the way some of those language choices highlights a different aspect of that.
For sure.
Pretty cool.
I had an elementary student, a high schooler, 20-something-year-old, and then a 60-plus-year-old paint one line out of Psalms 23.
Oh, wow.
They just needed to pick a line that stuck out to them, and then I had those on stage, and I kind of preached my sermon and referenced them, and it was really cool. They're all in my office, and
I'm gonna have to go back and find it, I guess,
I need to decide whether or not I'm gonna give them to them or not. So,
or keep them. Yeah.
The 20-something-year-old said, what would I do with it? You should keep it. So I'm really excited about that one. I need to ask the others if I can keep them too, or if they want them back. I'd like to keep them because I like them.
That's cool. Well, we drove 3,167 miles
3,100.
It was definitely more than that many minutes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we were down at the Grand Canyon. We had one of the coolest
Play
experiences.
VR in the back of a car.
Maybe.
This is a driving VR. Whoa! I saw the Grand Canyon. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Tell your story,
okay.
please.
We left our hotel. We went to the west rim of the Grand Canyon. It's about a 3-hour trip, and I was shocked that you can just walk right up to the edge of the canyon.
You think they're going to put a fence around the whole thing?
Well, we were in the
Lookout point.
Hualapai tribe, and they had these lookout points. And so with all the tourist traffic, I expected there to be rails in those tourist points, especially.
Sure. Yeah, that would make sense.
But, man, I guess they were just trusting you to know your own limits. But, man, it's
nice.
Some people, make comments like, oh, yeah, you saw the giant hole in the ground. But, I mean, I remember driving up and seeing the Colorado Plateau. Mm-hmm. And when all you could see was the plateau, I'm like, man, this is impressive. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of come over this hill and you see the rim of the canyon. And it's like, oh, my goodness. And then we get up to the edge and it's just, breathtaking. And then after we spent the day there, Heather looked, it was almost dinner time. And she said, hey, we're only 2 hours from the Vegas Strip. So, we've never been to Vegas before, so let's drive to Vegas for dinner. And so we drove to Las Vegas for dinner, and we get about halfway there and we see this sign that says, hey, the Hoover Dam is in 20 minutes. So it's like, oh, hey, look. So we stopped at the Hoover Dam. And then from Vegas, we were only like 3 hours still from our hotel. So it was one of those days where, if we had kind of been stuck to our schedule, might have missed out on a few things. End up having a really cool time and seeing some things that we didn't plan and didn't even really imagine. So
that's cool. That's good.
Really, really cool. And it was good to be home. Nice to take a vacation. Nice to be gone, but man, it's good to be home when you come home.
So this morning we're gonna talk about something that was fresh from me. I just got to go to NCYM, which is now. Let's see if I can do it right. NCYMC.
That's right.
It's now the national. Right? It's now the National Children's and Youth Ministry Conference. So they have fully. The last couple of years, there's been a lot of children's ministry tracks. Oh, little Josh Jones there, and so now they've made it official, which I think is fantastic. Like I think it's really great. And I'll be honest with you. I went to a couple children's ministry classes because I was like, hey, man, this sounds like something I need to know. To be fair, like they were really good. I think this year NCYM they knocked it out of the park. It was so good. They had Don McLaughlin did the keynotes, or not did the keynotes. He did the 8 a.m. morning class. And our good friend, our bearded brother, Alan Middleton, and I have always made a pact that we will wake up and go to the 8 a.m. together. And so we do, and we have for like the last 4 years. And it's rough. I don't know why. I get tired at NCYM. Lauren says, you've never been so tired than when you're at NCYM. And it has something to do with that your barriers are down and that you can just be there and relax, and it's a decompression time. But man, that 8 a.m. class, it just rocks
I don't know why either,
every time.
Because I've never been able to get you to get up early, and I've never been able to get you to stay up late. So,
late for you is 2 a.m. Late for me is midnight.
Yeah. But
so
midnight
actually,
is when all the kids would be in their cabins, and so it's all right, now we have our time to ping pong and do all this stuff, and you're like, no, it's bedtime. I'm like,
I'm exhausted, man. Directing,
that's why I need you at the ping pong table.
Directing takes actually. So I went to the creative lab class. And one of the classes was directing camp, and another seasoned veteran director said, if you're not doing this, you need to do this. If you're the director, you need to stay in your own cabin, and you need to get your rest and get your sleep, and stuff like that. And I always feel guilty. doing that.
Should.
But it's true. It's true. Like, you need to get your rest, and you need to be rested because you've got a lot of responsibility and a lot of things, a lot of plates spinning. So,
Yeah.
especially those last few years at Tallgrass, when I was like, usually we segmented and then divided all those roles amongst like 3 or 4 people, and then it became like me,
Right.
and then Terry was teaching Bible class. It was crazy.
So what are some of the good things? Like, why would you choose to go to a conference, or maybe it's not a conference, maybe it's just being able to attend other churches and other places. What are some of the good things that you look forward to at those kind of events?
The biggest thing that draws me to a conference, and this is probably the wrong attitude. So let's just start off with like, hey, Aaron, you're wrong. You're doing this wrong. But for me, it's who's going. Who's going. And so if I've got colleagues, if I've got people, I don't know why my camera is like focused in on my mic and not on my face. But if I've got people who I know are going to be at the conference, that makes a big difference. There's not enough moments where I get to be surrounded by or learning with other people who are doing the same thing that I'm doing. So for me, like, that's a big reason why I love N2IM. Like, there's something about walking in the room full of, 300, 400 other youth ministers who are in the trenches, and now children's ministers as well, who know what I'm going through, who know what kind of stress is. It's not a, really, your church is struggling. It's a, yeah, ours too, kind of mentality. So, that's a big part of it. So for me, it's who's going. And once I find out who's going, then I start mapping out, what am I going to go listen to? What do I want to go see? And that kind of stuff. What about you?
Yeah,
You're in a different bracket of people.
I'm just going to say, I don't think that's the wrong reason to go.
Sure. I don't think so either.
Because, going to, whether it's conferences or another church, for instance, we were traveling, home from Thanksgiving, and the only reason we stopped in Longview was so that we could worship with you and Lauren, not knowing Lauren was going to have to be at work. But,
I know, she was not happy.
I know. But so, there is something about camaraderie that is so important. There is something about finding those people who you can sit next to shoulder, and say, you know what, I'm not rowing this boat alone. We are rowing this boat together.
That's
and
right.
You may live 10 or 11 hours away from me, but we, in our own context, are moving this thing forward, and I'm not here alone. And so I think it's a really important aspect of, visiting places outside of your context.
It is.
And I'd like to go for new ideas as well.
That's huge.
Seeing, okay, so here's what I do, and it's so easy for me to get locked in the way I've always done things. Going to other churches, conferences, even, workshops and things gives me a chance to see what are people doing in other places that's working for them. And, Aaron took notes.
Yeah, like I have 6 pages of just like notes, and technology makes like some note taking so much easier and stuff. It was great. Yeah, like those new ideas, those fresh ideas, those new approaches are vital to sometimes a healthy ministry, or even for me, it's being able to hear a lesson or hear something that might be challenging, but then being around people, trusted people that I can unpack it with. I didn't get to go to N2IM last year, and I forgot how much I missed it. So this year it was such a blessing. Like, you go to a class, and let me just change. Like, here's the mindset. Sometimes people hear, like, I'll be honest. Like, some people hear like, oh, you went to Atlanta and then you got to hang out with a bunch of youth ministers, and then you went to lunch and dinner and stuff like that, right? And that's the mindset. And I think those people are the same people who might say, oh, you went to summer camp all week, or you went to church camp all week. You must come back rested and relaxed. And those are the people I'm like, would you please come out to church camp for a week, and then tell me how spiritually lifted and physically exhausted you are at the end of the week. Because for me, going to a conference is all about learning, but then being around trusted people and unpacking a lot of what's going on at the conference, but also a lot of what's going on like in ministry, in life. So that's it's like every moment of NCYM is connecting, is talking, is learning, and also it feels like, you ever seen God's Chisel done by the Skit guys?
Yeah.
It feels like God's doing that to me. I think Satan and I think this work kind of puts these barriers and these shells around us. We harden our hearts because it's just difficult and it's hard work. And I feel like NCYM kind of takes that chisel and breaks off that. It makes me tenderhearted. It makes me all these kind of things. And so those are a lot of the positive aspects for conferences for me. Like that's what they do for me. That's what they kind of help. Even small conferences that are just one day or stuff like that. Like having a day where you can just unplug and learn and visit.
Right.
Even if it's not something big like NCYM.
And I don't think there's like many like negatives, but one of the things that I have to be careful about is I have to know my own mind, and I have to know my own heart, and where I'm at when I go somewhere. Because if I'm not really truly honest about where I am mentally, spiritually, emotionally, I can get to a place where all I do is degrade in my own mind what's going on in my place. I can look around and say, man, look, all these people, and I can only see their successes and I cannot see their struggles. And I can get to this place where I just go, man,
I suck.
Either I'm not doing anything, or
Right.
I can start thinking poorly about my church or my leaders or the people I'm going to church with.
Yeah.
And so I have to be very, very conscientious of my goals coming in. Really honest with myself about the struggles that I'm having, and also about the good things that are going on as well. Because the truth is, I also have things to offer other people. And if I'm only going to take something out of it, I'm only receiving half of the benefit of those things. Because the other aspect is sharing my successes and my failures, is offering someone else an opportunity to possibly learn from the things that we've done.
Absolutely.
And so coming in with that really clear mind that just kind of lays everything open, it says, this isn't about judgment. This isn't about comparison. This is about me coming to a place, sharing my experiences, and seeing what can I learn about the way the kingdom is working in other places that we might be able to do and use to advance the kingdom. And that's not always a really easy place to get to. So it's a really important aspect of going.
Biggest drawback for me is that they take a lot of time. Right? Like going to a conference takes a lot of time. And I don't know if you know, but I got a lot going on. I got a lot of stuff. It's hard to budget that family time. It's hard to budget that work time. So this is like a running joke I hear all the time. NCYM for me, and I know I'm talking a lot about NCYM, so I apologize if that doesn't ring a bell with our audience. But that's just the last conference that I went to. Because I didn't win the trip to Pepperdine. So that's a bummer, but that's okay. There's always next year, right?
There's always next year.
But it takes a lot of like time, and that can be rough. So the running joke for NCYM is it is the best placed and the worst placed calendar-wise for a conference, right? You're coming off the first of the year, so it's kind of hard to travel. And then for some of us, Winterfest is like the next week.
Right.
So you've got a trip and you've got a holiday, and in between that, you've got this conference. But it's also the best placed for me because it's when I'm doing goals and I'm doing goal settings. I just did my year-end review with one of our shepherds, all this kind of stuff. And so it puts me in this healthy place, and then I go to this conference and I come back even healthier And January, February is a big double planning month for me for year-on goals
Right.
and year planning, things like that. So, it's the worst place because, man, I got to come back and I told Lauren, I said my head was about to explode because I taught Bible class on Sunday morning and I didn't stop answering text messages until I got in the car to drive back for youth group Sunday night. And even then, I had parents texting me and asking questions, but that's just the way it is. Like, we have an event coming up, we have traveling plans. I got kids who are canceling and kids who are like, "I'm sorry, I didn't sign up. Can I go?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely," because this person canceled, and you just happen to be the same gender and same T-shirt size. So, it works out great. And you have to go by their name. No, I'm just kidding. But and so that kind of works out that way. So I think the drawback sometimes for a conference is that they take up a lot of time. They take up some time that you might be working on a sermon, you might be working on a class, you might be needing to spend with your congregation, or there's a funeral or something that's going on. So sometimes a conference, it takes up some of your physical time. Sometimes they can be kind of expensive. When you talk about registering for a conference, you talk about flying there, you talk about maybe renting a car, maybe even getting a hotel. Like, it adds up. It just adds up over time. And sometimes, churches can't budget for it. I think it's something that churches really need to budget and send their ministers on. And so those are some of the drawbacks, but sometimes those aren't really drawbacks. Sometimes those are just hurdles. NCYM has to be something that I plan for. I try to set things in motion before I leave. And come back knowing that these are the things that I have to accomplish right away Monday morning when I get back.
Yeah, and that work is still there, right? I mean, so you leave that, and whether you're there for 3 days or 4 days, it doesn't matter how much work I do ahead of time to make sure that it's easier when I get back. I'm still coming back, and it's still waiting for me. And so,
absolutely,
kind of put that away for a minute is sometimes difficult. But it is about priority, right? I mean, we make it happen when it's a priority for us. For instance, right now, our priority is finding a way to get to Japan to see, our son and our daughter-in-law and our new grandbaby after next month. And so everything now, it is a big deal. And so everything now is like, hey, so-and-so needs a new car. And it's like, well, as soon as we get to Japan, we can start looking at a car. But until we get to Japan, everything that we have and do is focused on making sure we have enough money and time and vacation time to take that time that we need. Because it is not a priority, it is the priority at this point.
Right.
For us. And so when you set those priorities and stick to them, then, as you said, those don't become drawbacks as much as they become obstacles where we say, okay, so how do we clear this obstacle to get where we want to go? And it's good. I have trouble sometimes gauging when I'm there because all these new ideas, all these new tools, all these new avenues, all these new service projects are all things that immediately in my mind are like, yes, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this.
Let's wipe the slate clean and just start a new church. This is what our new calendar looks like.
And the truth is, just because it works in Longview and just because it works in Pensacola, just because it works in other places
Nashville,
doesn't
Tennessee.
mean it's necessarily going to work in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Right.
And that's true because of my people. It's true because of the people in the community. And sometimes there just aren't the same kind of avenues. And so it can be difficult when you're flooded with all these new ideas to discover or to think, all right, these are all good ideas. Now, which ones of these can I conceivably use at home? I see you have a notes app open there. So I you use your phone to open your notes.
I do. And this doesn't apply, and I think Josh, you know this too. This doesn't just apply to ministers when we go to conferences. Church members, listen to us, okay?
That's right.
When you go and visit a new church, I want to hear the good thing that's going on. I really do. But we do have to understand that church is different than your home church that you're at. And so There has to be a filtering process. Sometimes there's already a plan in motion. We have to respect the plan that's in motion and see fruition. It doesn't mean it's not a bad idea. It just means that maybe that's not something that we can get around to at this very moment. Or maybe we don't see that fitting in to our plan at the moment. But it doesn't mean I don't want to hear it. It just means that like sometimes we go and we get hit with like a fire hose of good news and good information, right? And it's a lot, and it hits hard, and it's like, how do I walk away with that, and things like that. But I think sometimes, I always had church members who went down to visit their kids at a Christian college, and they joined or they went to the Christian sorry, let me just get my words right. I had members who would go down and visit their kids at a Christian college, and then they would go to the big campus church that was really nearby, and they would have these great things that they're doing because they're like a mega church. They're huge. So they come back and they're like, we need to be doing this, or we need to be doing this, and we need to be doing this. This is what they do. And I would sit there and I'd be like, that's awesome. Who's going to do that? We don't have the person who's talented in that area to be able to fulfill that goal. So what we do is we do the best that we can with the tools that we have at our congregation. So sometimes there's that. So how do you gauge? How do you take those new ideas and how do you filter it into your ministry, into something that you could be a part of at your congregation? Because our audience is not just preachers and youth ministers. It's also, I hope, mainly like church goers. Just how do you attend a congregation or go to another church, a vacation church, see what they're doing and filter it into your context?
Well, I don't.
Yeah.
And I don't on purpose because I don't always think clearly and I don't always think objectively in those moments. Sometimes I am pie in the sky, super ideal, completely in a utopian mind, because that's often where my mind goes to in these creative moments. It's like, we can do this. And the truth is, we can do it. But we might not be in a place where we can do it yet. And even though we should be able to do something, doesn't mean that it's realistic to expect something of our people in that way. So
absolutely.
I've tried to get in the habit of taking everything in, of recording everything that strikes me, and then keeping it in a place where I can go to it at a later time, where I can be a little more objective and say, okay, so there's all of these ideas here that are on the table. What are the ones that I can do now? What are the ones that I need to keep? And what are the ones that I need to kind of pass on to other people that they might be better suited for?
Right. Yeah.
But instead of trying to gauge in the moment, taking them in, writing them all down, recording them, whether it's in a Spiral, Notes app, on your voice recorder, however it is that you record information, and just saying, okay, and having them kind of earmarked in that way. Because I think it's important for us to kind of take it in and then sit on it for a little bit, and then come back to it with some fresh eyes and a fresh mind and say, okay, now then, which of these fits our mission? Which of these fits our values? Which of these fits the place where we believe God is calling us in our community? And how do we move forward?
There's so much wisdom in some of the practices that like we've kind of brushed off. Like stopping and praying through a moment is the same thing like stopping and unpacking and deciding what you're going to do or how you're going to move forward. It's the same. It's the same idea. It's just inviting God into that space. You did mention I do use the Notes app on my phone. iPhone has made it really easy to take notes on because you can do headers and you can do titles and things like that. It also has a cool feature where you could scan documents. So if you hit the scan document button and hold it up to somebody's slide, it'll scan that slide and just capture that stuff that's on there and pull it as a nice image. So it makes it really fast, really easy. I used to write everything down in like a hand journal because I thought I was trendy and cool and from the Northwest. But I decided that it was just a lot easier to take notes on my phone and then being able to like email and share and do all that kind of stuff. So
Aaron, the truth is you were from the Northwest and you were trendy and cool.
I was. Now I'm old and lame, and I'm okay with that. So yeah. So how do I gauge? How do I take stuff? So what I personally do is I listen to a lesson. So I went to this last one. It's like a 2-hour long class. It's called the Creative Lab. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of creativity. A lot of ideas are flowing. And what I do is I listen and I go through it and I take all the notes that I possibly can. I mean, I'm just typing fast. I'm taking all the notes that I can. And then what I do is I go back and I review and I break that down and I say, this is a great idea. I really want to do this. But this won't work in my context. But there's some key points and key factors that I want to pull from this and kind of use and do. So that works for me in a lot of like games. So like I really like the Creative Lab because 2 of the 4 sessions out of it is all about games and creating great games. And Josh knows, me personally, I love making games. I love making up games. I love making up stupid names for games. I love creating the rules and everything of games. And I'm hoping to get Jesse on here on the podcast and talk about that experience of creating games. So I love It's Who I Am because I made a lot of contacts of people who were like, dude, I want to be on the podcast. That'd be great. And I'm like, you listen to my podcast? That's weird. But that's cool. Like, I'm excited. So that was really, so I felt slimy being like, hey, you should come on my podcast. But it is what it is. So we're going to have like a lot of streams of guests on the season and going through. So anyway, this game creating process, I will look at that and I'll go, okay, I like this game, but here's how I need to change it because that won't work. We don't have a balcony at Pine Tree, so it's not going to work. So I need to change that. We don't have, our campus is segmented by buildings. It's not one large building that you can run around. So I'm going to have to change that game, an aspect of that. And so, but in reality, that's a good practice. You go to another congregation, you go to another church, you see something that they're doing, you take that and you take your filter and you push that through your filter of your congregation. This is what it would look like for us to do something like that. Because there's a lot of research, there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of things to think about. It's not just walking back and being like, hey, I went to a church and their children's did a Christmas program. Can we do that? Great, you can say that, but it takes months of practice, lots of setup. You've got relationships and people that have to be okay with having a Christmas concert in your congregation, in your sanctuary. So there's a lot more things to kind of think about than just, they're doing this, why can't we do this?
Yeah, that's right. And one of the best ways to go about implementing some things is to, number one, I have to be sure that I'm gentle. That there are people who are in our churches. It is not the thing they do every day.
Yeah.
And so for me, I am thinking about, this church, these ministries, these people all day, every day. It's why I do what I do, and it's why they have me doing what I'm doing. And so I have to remember that this is not the thing that they think about all day, every day. And we're not even going to get to whether or not it should be or shouldn't be or whatever. It's just not, because they have families, they have jobs, they have things that consume their mind in other ways. And so I have had time to think and process and weigh the pros and cons. And I might be ready to do something, but if I just walk in and say, okay, boom, and I dump all this stuff on them, you're going to have people that resist just simply because it's too much information to process too quickly. And so being gentle about, and I'm not even talking about making radical changes. Even some of the smallest changes can create waves that people just begin to distrust. And so being patient with our people and making sure that they have access to all the information that I have as we gently bring some things to them. And then, just like you said, I thought it was perfect with realizing that no idea is cookie cutter, and I can't just pick it up from one place and place it another. But taking those pieces of those plans and ideas and using the ones that will push the gospel forward with our people, is so key. And that's true with people bring you ideas. Somebody brings you a big idea from a big mega church and you don't have the resources. You can say, dude, I love that. I don't know if we have the people to do all of that, but what if we were to take this part of that and start implementing this piece of that puzzle and give us something to build on in the future? It brings engagement. It validates their idea,
Mm.
and it begins to walk that path.
You know what makes me laugh about this is I was just thinking, I was like, man, you know what I love? I love when people like have this idea and they want to do it, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna put together a team to do this. And I was just thinking, oh, that's funny, like a team to do something. Oh, that's like a church, you know. Oh, so like a church within a church. So it was making me my giggle inside my head a little bit there, but I think that's a big part of it too. Is you know, if you're a member and you're coming back with an idea and you want to implement something, I think including and talking to one of your ministers about it and saying, hey, but I would be willing to put together a team and kind of run this and keep you in on the loop, because I realize that I don't need you to run this. Like, I will run it, but I need you to be in on the loop because I realize that this affects your overall ministry. And I hope our audience really hears those words, that it's not that you're going to your preacher, your pastor, your youth minister, your children's minister, whoever you want to talk to about. It's not that you're going to them for permission to do something.
Right.
You're going to them because you realize that this is their job, this is their livelihood, this is what they've trained to do, this is what they do, and you're changing something in that. You know, it's their fish tank, and you're not wanting them to really do something here, but you are doing something that is going to affect the overarching fish tank. You know, that's a terrible metaphor, but. So you're not going to. Let me just say it this way. Let me be very plain. We'll cut all that from the podcast. Okay, you're not doing this to ask for their permission. You're doing this because you want them in on the loop, so they can utilize it for their ministry, as it affects their ministry in some sense. Because anything new you do at a congregation is going to affect all your other stuff. That you do, because there's only so many hours in a day, there's only so many hours in the week, and there's only so many volunteers that you have. And so, you know, so approaching them and saying, hey, this is something that I really want to put a team together to do this, and I want to keep you in on the loop so that you know what's going on, so that you can help out when you have time to be able to help out. But I'm not trying to add anything to your schedule that you're already doing, because I respect and I know that you're doing a lot of stuff as it is. I mean, I would be like, what just happened? Did you just listen to a really great podcast that taught you, you know, about church dynamics and how to like gracefully approach these kind of things? That's wonderful. I would love to. Yeah, please keep me in on the inside loop, because I would love to. Sometimes there's a couple things here at Pine Tree that I've loved that I've just gotten to like volunteer for. Like it's member ran and they do it. That's and cool. I'm like, dude, sign me up. Like, I'll volunteer. Like, I've got my personal free time that I would love to spend serving and doing this. I'm not in charge of anything. I don't have to run anything. I just show up and I do the work and I love on people. And that's fantastic. It's so wonderful. So, I mean, that would be one way. That would be one way if you wanted to implement something. That's what I would do. And I think having those open and honest communications, but also having that understanding that like nobody wants to be in the position where you say jump and the other person has to jump. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Like no one likes to be in that. So, you know, don't walk into the church office and be like, I have this new idea and I want everybody on board, and stop what you're doing because it's no longer important. Because they're just as passionate about something that they're doing that you are about this new idea. Yeah. A lot of times.
I agree.
Any behind the beards moment did you got?
Yeah, I do. And I'm a little disappointed that I haven't come up with a behind the beards moment overlay or something for this. I'm gonna get on that.
Please do. You're lacking.
And maybe some like background music. You know, we can get a little nice soft organ playing.
I'll ask Lauren to design something too. That'll be good.
You know, my deal is, hey, as ministers, we want your ideas.
Absolutely.
We want to know the things that you have experienced that excite you, and where you go, I want this at my church.
Yeah.
So bring those to us, even if we can't put it in right away, all full blown. We are taking it in, and we're going to do everything we can to implement pieces of that. And the second thing is, when I come back as a minister and I'm ready to go and do something, instead of, you know, responding with, you know, resistance, I just encourage people to respond with, hey, keep in mind, you've had this is a lot for us to process. So can you share with me some of the things that you've learned and help kind of bring us up to where you are? Remember, you've had a lot of time to think about this, and we're hearing about this for the first time. So back up, talk to me about this idea like I'm a kindergartner and you're trying to give me the basics. Because
That's like The
sometimes we
Office,
need to be
right?
reminded of that.
Talk to me as if I was a 5-year-old. Okay, now explain it like I was a 3-year-old.
Yeah, that was a 5-year-old. Okay, let's go to 3.
That's funny.
But just remembering, helping us to remember where we've been, how much we've thought about it, how much we've processed, so we can move forward. And the truth is, this may be an idea that I'm trying to implement that is not good for our people, and we're just not on board with.
Right.
But let's arrive there together, and figure out how we are going to best move forward. Because it's about teamwork, and we're all moving forward in the same direction. And as long as we're all pulling this sled in the same direction, we're going to be good. And I definitely don't want to be the one that's pulling in a different direction.
Yeah.
Or
pulling harder than everyone else.
True.
You know.
I mean, so that's it. That's it for me. Is just finding those ways for us to all stay on the same page, and continue to bring those ideas, because we want to hear them, and we want to do our best to implement new and exciting things that empower people and inspire people to advance the kingdom. Absolutely.
We are so excited that y'all are here with us today, and we appreciate you downloading and listening and subscribing and all that jazz and stuff. We're excited about the new year. We're excited about some new podcast ideas, some things that will be a little bit harder for our audio listeners, but will be good for our visual listeners, and things like that. So kind of doing some live video reviews and stuff like that. Having on a whole load of guests. I saw Josh Jones in the chat, and he's excited about coming back on the show. Later on, Adam England from Bakersfield, California, plans to be on the show. Hopefully we'll be able to get some KT and some Alan Middleton, and some other people from all over the continent here, to be able to get them in on the show and give us their perspectives. So that would be super great. But we want to thank you guys for being here today. And we also remind you of this, Galatians 6:9. Man, this has been the founding stone for our podcast. You know, don't grow weary in doing good. This world is messy and this life is messy. So allow Christ to use you to do something different, something good in his name. I'm Aaron, and this is Josh, and we will see you next week on Behind the Beards.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard. Till we're all growing a beard.
So good. Dude, look how creepy this thing is.
We might have to do like one episode on like beard care, just because. Little scorpion. Oh.
Sam's been really into these. These are called like hex beasts or hex.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And they're kind of cool.
Hex bugs.
So he went potty on the potty 10 times, so he got a new one.
Nice.
So that was kind of cool. And then and he said, "Well, I think mommy and daddy should get one." So I got the scorpion, and Lauren got this like gold beetle, which is like really cool.
Did you have to go potty on the potty 10 times before you got yours, or?
I have gone potty many times on the toilet. So those are really cool. So it's kind of fun. We have put them all on our coffee table, you know, is up, so it works really good for that. So it's been kind of fun.
That's awesome. Good stuff, man. Good show.
Good show. Appreciate you.
Sayonara, Facebook land.